Monday morning, and welcome to the D22 restoration, because that's literally what it's turning into, unbelievably. Steps off. I'm not sure if I like it with or without. I've got all that the wire brush back, so all the carpet's got to come out. I hate to think what's under that plate. Oh dear. See what I'm up against? Yes, that's rust. And that's a big hole. That's a big hole. So, this is what I think we're going to have to do. I don't know how far back this rock goes at the moment. It's a fairly thick old bit of metal in there anyway, but it's just starting to go there. I'm contemplating, I don't say I'm going to do it yet, but I might plasma cut this whole back panel out, subject to how much rot I actually find in it, and then cut around these mounts, yeah, and then when I put my 2x4 in, weld it all up. Oh, I hate welding from behind, and I hate welding upside down even more so. And we'll just weld around that, and we'll cut along that line there, just underneath, all the way along, all the way across, until that whole bit has been removed. Sorry Chris, I'm not doing anything at the moment, I'm still drinking my coffee indoors. So that is what we've got going on at the moment, and then when I have done that, that will give me somewhere to tie jacks to, strong enough to lift it up in the air. So all the interior's got to come out. I can't make my mind up if I like it with or without the steps, but if we jack it up in the air, that's kind of how high that body will look, but the chassis will be a lot lower still. I don't know, but that's what we're up against. Well, this is what happens when you weld a patch over the top of a rusty patch of metal that hasn't been cleared with the grinder. Always remove the rust before you overplate, and if you can, grease up the plate that you're putting over the top, because the two surfaces condensate and eventually your original will do that. There is nothing left of the original sill. That's what I've cut out, and this is going to be a nuisance to me. I wasn't expecting to see that. So there you go. What a mess. Right, the decision has been made. There's only one thing I can do, and it's based on me not being very good at welding upturned. But not only that, the lip all the way along there is pretty rotten, and it's going to be a nightmare to weld to, because once I've cleaned it up, it'll be micro thin. So we're going to clean this edge up here, sand it back to that line, which is at its flattest point anyway, and we're going to put a very small piece of 1-inch box steel underneath here, so we're going to weld that on all the way along there. We're going to drill a few holes and plug weld in so that stays in place. Then we'll grease it all up underneath as best as we can, bearing in mind this stuff will catch fire. We don't want to be burning the car down. That's my initial thoughts on what to do about that. Then we'll wire brush everything underneath, and we'll see if we can get some paint in there first. Again, catch fire. Not the best of ideas, but I don't have any others. We're going to put a block of steel in, about halfway coming out, so we can put a high lift jack under there, because we're going to need that to lift this thing up anyway. So it'd be nice to have that and for off-roading. And I think eventually we'll end up cutting along that line there and getting rid of that seam all the way along, because it's not great, mainly up that area. Well, I think we're all prepped. I've cleaned up underneath as best as possible. The metal's cut, that's it over there against the wall. The box steel I've got to deal with later, but we won't bother with that yet. The anchor point for the high lift jack, whether I'm going to be able to use it or not I don't know, because the step's got to go back, but I do need it to lift the body up in the air to get that epoxy cross member done, which I'm not looking forward to. That's in a right nasty spot. So yeah, that's the case now. I get the welder out and let's get the first steel plate put. Actually no, we need to get that in first and then we can put the first steel plate in. We're going to do the underpiece first because I need access for the welder. I can't weld upside down very well, right? I don't mind admitting it. Never been very good at it. The metal is extremely thin where the seam is along there, because the chappie who owned it before, he didn't care obviously, because all he did was had another sill welded over the top of the rot. You saw it for yourself, and that is the demise of that inner sill. I will be the first to admit this isn't quite going to plan. The inner sill is very thin and rotten. I'm not going to show you the welding because it's tragic, really, but it's 3mm under here, so that's stronger than it's ever been. I've got a jacking point there which has got to be trimmed up after, so that'll all get cut out and that'll be flush and aligned and welded as and when. And it is at an angle, because I don't know if any of you have used high lifts before, but they always seem to go in at an angle and they seem to hold better on a mount that's angled. Well, I think they do, so that's the reason that is angled. It's blanked off at the other end, so mud and muck can't get in there. It's just got to be welded up underneath and around. And now I've got to put in a piece of box, weld that to the seal very badly, and then I've got to hammer up that piece of 3mm and weld that in very badly. But I can't grind it because they're back, and I don't want to put crap over that, even if it is a hybrid. Well, check that gap out. 3-inch lift, didn't go the full 4, and the reason was a lot of engine bay components, little troubles in there, like for example, I don't think you see that steering down there, that forced itself out as I lifted. That was one issue. On top of the fact it was getting it up there in the height I needed it as well. Radiator's got to be shifted, that's got to be lowered. The gear selectors are also now a problem, because obviously I've lifted it up in the air and the selectors are now sitting in a different position. I mean, look at that, that's not where they were before. Got some experimenting to do with the old gearbox. A lot of the mounts were, the bolts were rusted out anyway. A bit like an old bolt on keel on a boat, it was just rotten. So yeah. What else is there? Oh yeah, there was a rear brace in the middle on the gearbox, which I didn't know was there. Also had to drop the clutch pipe as well, because that would have stretched and broke. I've also noticed that the power steering pipes, because the radiator sits higher, are now being pushed a bit, so we've got to get that radiator down. That's my next task. Get that, I don't even know what it is, the brace in the middle. I'll get that sorted out, and then we can get on with that broken mount which is there. Look, totally mullered. We made them basically 3-inch tube welded to the top rubber mount, and all the mounts fell apart. I think the rubber was amalgamated, and you know what, I don't really think it makes a lot of difference because you're running a bolt through the centre. So I just welded all the tubes, 3-inch tubes all the way around, and then with a high lift jack, hence the block in the middle which has got to be tidied up, I just jacked it all up and hoped for the best, and it was all hopes and prayers and all the rest of it that go with that. We got it up there. Okay, the last mount has been made. I'm just waiting for my buddy to turn up with some gas and I can weld it. I'm actually rather pleased with that actually. There was no cardboard templates. I didn't have a design to copy. I had half of an original mount left, and to be honest, there wasn't much help. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So we've just got that one to do, and he hasn't turned up yet, and I'm not expecting anything today. So we'll see if we can't get the CO2 out tomorrow and finish that off. Who knows? So what we got left? Well, we've got to put the brake line bracket back on. Not that one, we're going to make our own up, that's shot. And the brake line can go in. We've also got a bracing, I don't even know what it's for, but under there is a brace that I had to disconnect. So I need to sort that out. There is a rattly exhaust mount that I do believe I can now get to. Now I've jacked the body up. We'll see if we can't resolve that. What else is there? Oh, airbag mounts. I'm just waiting for a reply on the other airbag. And if I have got the other airbag, then I'm going to be fitting the airbag mounts, and I shall detach the rear axle joints so I can get these hammer blocks out, and they'll get cut and modified for the airbags. And one of my last jobs is this awful bumper built, which is very, very heavy. I would actually like to lift that and lighten it a little bit as well. There's just too much weight there. That steel block that the winch is sitting on, I think that's going to get cut out significantly. Like all of this in here. What we got underneath? See, we've got a dirty great bar underneath as well, so we don't really need all of that. So that's going to get cut out, a lot of that. And those tubes as well. I don't like them. I think we'll get rid of them at some point. So that's my plan. Got to grind back all that, did I say rust? I meant weld. I've got to grind that all back, clean that all up, find some checker plate to put over it, which I was going to put on once, hammer that all up, and then put the checker plate cornering on and glue that on with tiger seal so it never comes off. That's one of the plans. And then we're going to make the mounts for the buck. I've got to extend this possibly by 3 inches, and that's pretty much it really. Yeah. I take it back. Just pulled up. Looks like we are getting some welding done tonight. Don't be rude. Right, I'll catch up with you in a minute, guys. God, we're there. Done. Both sides. I have no idea who that was shouting. So, tomorrow, if it's not raining tomorrow, then we will get that brake line made up and put in. We'll get the exhaust bracket made up and put in, and I think we'll also drop the front bumper, get that round the back. I can use my own welder to fix that, that's not an issue. And we'll drop the radiator, and then all the clean-up process after that. Chassis sandblast, a few other little bits and bobs, trim up, clean up the welding, because that's pretty tragic along there. I'll openly confess, alright? That metal was hard to weld. I struggled, but it is done. Step extensions, because we want them to stick out further, but before we do that we need to get the tyres transferred over, so we've got to clean the wheels up on the other ones that we've got and then get those tyres dealt with. And then no, I think we're good to go. We can then chop this all up, fiberglass the sides up. I've given myself about 2 weeks with that. I've just got to get some more resin from somewhere. I'm going to need a fair bit actually this time around, because we've got to make moulds this time, and I want to bring those wheel arches out, flare them out a little further, and also we may have to do the same on the front. I never really did like these arches, but I don't know if that's going to be possible to do. One idea was just to undo that, put a trim of metal underneath. That will then bring that out 3 inches, and then we could put some foil tape in there and just make up another arch. And that was kind of where my head was going with it, but I don't know on that one. But I do know on that one what we're doing. So, and I was watching Car SOS yesterday. They were doing a Range Rover-y thing, a Series 1 Discovery, and they cut the rear floor out, and it suddenly dawned on me that I could use a Discovery 1 floor to replace this mess instead of checker plate. So I might look into that. That's the beauty of Land Rovers, there's a big following for them, so a lot of parts are available, and I might be able to transfer the rear tub into that. That's my plan anyway. I think it's more than feasible. Why not? I mean, this is pretty bad. Okay, I thought I'd do one more thing before I ended the video, and that was the brake line. I have replaced that hose, new block, and a new brake line here. The bracket, the original bracket, had a clip. Couldn't use it, it was absolutely knackered. So what I've done is I made a plate. I drilled a large hole for that to go through, and then there was another plate that goes over the top that locks in, so it's like a fork, goes over, nut and bolt, locks the fork in place, and that ain't going nowhere. Screwed into the frame. I had to buy a flange kit because Wilco's wouldn't make the brake line for me. They reckon it had a different type of flange that they didn't have a fitting for. Well, little to their knowledge, they did. They just didn't know how to use it. So I bought my own down there on the floor. That did the job. So we've bled that through now. Might have to do a bit more bleeding later, but for now that will do. So that is that. Tomorrow I'm going to start the airbag brackets. I was also going to weld on the exhaust. I mean, here it is. That needs a good paint up, but it's there. That will get welded on as well. Already ground the exhaust back, so I'll go there like that, and then that will get welded on. That'll hold that in position just nicely, and then once I've done that, that whole beam can then be painted up. That's the only thing left to do. In fact, there's nothing to stop me from quickly slapping some paint over that now, but the rest of it's done. So yeah, and we've got an airbag pump. That is a proper pump for an airbag system. That came off a commercial trailer in the yard about 4 years ago. I've had that in the shed, never used it. So I need to find somewhere to bolt it. No, I'm not quite sure exactly where that is going to be at the moment. I'd like it on the outside of the vehicle, but my My mind is saying it really should be on the inside, but there's nowhere on the inside to put it. So, thank you very much for viewing. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the likes on the previous one. I know I've already said it, but I'll probably edit that out and do it all over again. So, yeah, next video will be airbags. How far I'll be able to complete that, I do not know, because I ain't got pipes. I need a gauge, haven't got that. I'd like to put a gauge inside the cab so I can keep an eye on that pressure. So hosing and everything, I don't have any of that, so I don't know how well that's going to go down. What I would like to do is run some copper pipe from the pumps, connect them to a hydraulic line, being the way I'd like to do it, and then I ain't got to worry about anything corroding over time, have I? But that's an expensive way in doing it. The best way would be to use that plastic airline that you see on lorries and stuff, but I think the lorry stuff is different diameter. So excuse me. Ooh. Yeah. Anyway, airbags. Next one. Airbags, radiator drop, front bumper removal, gear selector, old alter, and underneath the truck there's a bracket that I bent when I lifted the body because I didn't know what I was bending. Don't even know what it does, don't even know if it's important. It just seems like a U-clamp that goes over the prop shaft to stop the prop shaft from flying around. I'm assuming that's what that's for. But that needs to be lengthened and put back in. So that's it. And then we can put the work on the tub in the garden after that. So this week coming is everything I've just listed, and then the final week will be that and sandblast and paint. Moving on. See you next week.